Listen here, all you podcasters. There are three things you don't know about this episode. One is me, the special guest on here, and the other's Godzilla. This is episode Final War. That was my Captain Gordon impression there. But anyway, hello everybody, and welcome to the final Godzilla film podcast episode, which is not really the final episode, but I just like to say it like that. But we're on to the next Godzilla film. It is the final chapter in the classic era of all Godzilla films. It is Godzilla Final War, the last chapter in the Toho Rubber Suit classic Godzilla films. Yep. And today we have a very special guest here for tonight, and he is he was the main star in the fan-made Godzilla film, Godzilla Battle Royale, and he's been at G-Fest for so many times. Please welcome the one and only Billy Dubose. How's it going, buddy?
How's it going, Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I am glad to have you in this very special episode, and I've been having so many guests on here, but I'm glad to have you in this episode. And I know this is not really the final Godzilla film podcast episode. I just like to say like that because it's Final Wars, and so yeah, I am really glad to have you on here, Billy.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much for asking me. This is one of my favorite films of the whole series.
Yeah, me too. And I know some fans say this is not like the best Godzilla film in the Millennium era, and well, some fans said. And so yeah, I remember that I remember you from the fan film Godzilla Battle Royale, and that was before we met in person.
Yeah. When did we first meet? Actually,
I believe that was like 2015 or 16. It was at G Fest.
Okay. Well, I did release it on 2014, although I did have a preview of half the film in 2013. So it would have been the year after that.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that I went to one of the old classic movie theaters. I don't think it was the Pickwick Theater. I mean, what was that famous film that you premiered in which theater? And
Well, I premiered Godzilla Battle Royale at G-Fest in Ballroom 2. I begged and pleaded for the Pickwick. I even offered to rent the Pickwick for them, but they were scared of the whole Toho and copyright thing, which I understand. I tried, but you know what? They were very gracious to give me Ballroom 2. We still had a really big audience for it, and they applauded greatly for it. I couldn't thank JD and his family enough for allowing me to do that. They could have told me no, but they allowed me to.
well, I understand because like copyright issues and all that, and yeah, but hopefully I'll get to do a podcast episode of your fan film someday in the future.
I'd be more than happy to do that with you.
Yeah, but tonight's episode we'll be talking about Godzilla Final War from 2004, the final chapter of the Godzilla saga, which some fans think it is. And we only have one guest in the comments in here. We have Walter. How's it going, buddy?
Oh, Walter, how you doing, buddy? It's been a while.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna be asking you a few questions, like I did with my other guests who have been my previous episodes. Like, how do you first discover this film for the first time? Like, try to remember back then. You discovered from your childhood, or when you discovered when it first premiered, and
Well, it's a very long story, but I'll keep it very short. Back in 2002, I started getting back into the Godzilla fandom when the early internet forum groups like Tokyo Monsters, Mazer City, and Barry's Temple of Godzilla, and a few others at the time were really becoming popular within the very small community of G fandom at the time. I didn't even know G Fest existed. So I was just, messing around on the forums. And then the hot talk was Godzilla Final Wars right after Tokyo SOS came out. And I started seeing the first news bits about it, and then the designs, and then all the rumored premises, and Don Fry's going to be in it, and I was really excited. It was the big talk of the forums. Everyone was speculating, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, is Godzilla going to look good? Are the other monsters going to look good? Who else is in it that they're not telling us? And just all these things. And then 2004 came along, and somebody leaked a little link on one of the forums that you could watch the full movie early, right after they released it in Japan. So I was part of that small group that was able to hack in to see the film early online. And it was, I don't know, it probably wasn't exactly a legal thing to do at the time, but I mean, which one of us wasn't downloading music or movies on the internet?
Yeah,
So we watched, and I was just blown away, just completely blown away. And that's just the start of it. I do want to talk about my G-Fest premiere experience later when we get to it, but I hope that answers your question.
Hey, very good discovery, Billy, and very interesting. And I would love to talk about how I first discovered it. Like, I mean, back before, I didn't hear about this that much when like you said, about when they're gonna release the Final War films, and there's some news or ads about it. I mean, I didn't hear that much because I'm not really much of an internet guy. It's because I was a kid back then. I was so little. I mean, and before I discovered on DVD, I mean, I did, I did got my second Godzilla game, Godzilla Save the Earth, and which is a sequel to Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. I mean, I did play the game, and then Save the Earth. It has more monsters. I have a blast with this game more than Destroy All Monsters, and it's and then when I scroll down some settings or some the geology settings or images, I mean the behind of the some images of the behind the scenes of the making of the game, and they also show some images of the sets of Godzilla Final War. I was like, when I look at the images, I remember seeing the images of Godzilla and Anguirus and King Caesar like in the battle, and I thought, what what are these images? Are these from? Yeah, like so yeah, that's what I noticed. I mean, when I look at the images, I just have no idea what these are from. But after I move into Georgia, that's my old home state town, and I remembered when I went to my local Blockbuster store, which used to exist, and I and they have a few Godzilla films on DVD, and I saw on this one shelf it says Godzilla Final Wars, and I was like, ooh, is that a new Godzilla film? So I asked my mom to rent this for me, and I did. I kind of sit down and watched it, and I gotta honest, my jaw just dropped. Like, wow! I watched the whole thing. It's like this is like amazing Godzilla film that's ever made. I mean, it's like does have some human fight crime scenes, and then because like kind of like the Power Rangers or ninja fight styles, and it has more. It brought back the classic monsters from their classic films, and I just had a blast with this film, and
I used to go crazy for this film, but not so much right now. I mean, and I was so surprised that Zilla is in this one, and I was like, no way.
Yeah, when we found out Zilla was involved, that got my curiosity up. At first, I'm like, why is he in this film? But then I'm thinking, definitely, finally, the chance to see the Japanese, the real Godzilla, whoop his butt.
Yeah, and eh, yeah, and I was yeah, and I yeah, Godzilla did fight Zilla in this film, but only a second.
Not even a second. It's don't blink or you'll miss it.
Yeah, and then I remember like I was a kid after I rented, I watched it, and I asked my mom if I can. Is there a way I can buy this movie? And she kind of did. She actually gave me it as a gift.
Aw,
Yeah, and then the one thing I love about this film is the music, like especially the end credits.
yes. Definitely love the music by Keith Emerson.
Yeah, actually, there are three music directors for this film.
Yeah,
Actually,
there's a few different music artists. There was some stock footage music, but I mean, since they were using a lot of stock footage, yes, they were used. But I want to focus on the three that definitely did it. Let me just I'm losing my memory here on who the other two were. Do you have those names ready?
I remember like you said Keith Anderson is did uh,
Yes,
did some of it.
he
Yeah,
he did a good number of it, but also it says Nobu Nobuhiko Marino and Daisuke Yano were the other two.
yeah, and yeah, those are the three music directors, and I really talk, and I would like to talk about more about the opening and the end credits theme. I mean, I love the theme so much. I kind of stopped couldn't stop dancing to it.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
it's definitely a proper intro and even a proper outro. And by the time in the ending scene, when you're watching Godzilla and Minya walk off into the sunset with that music, it almost at the same time felt like a video game ending. And you also just felt tears in your eyes knowing that this was going to be the last time you saw them for a while. We knew it wasn't going to be forever, but yeah.
yeah. And I hear some fans and rumors. I mean, I don't know if it's true that some fans say that the theme that doesn't quite match with Godzilla. There's some fans say they don't like the theme of it.
I mean, I can somewhat agree with that. A little bit of it seems out of place for what you would normally expect in a classic Toho film, but with all due respect, this film wasn't exactly just trying to be classic and call back on that. It was, but it was trying to also go with tradition, but break with tradition at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of does. I mean, we all we all know that Keith and I did heard of that Keith Anderson. Yeah, just passed away not too long ago. Was it back in 2016?
Let me look here.
I think he did.
Yes, March 10th of 2016 at the age of 71.
Yeah, but fans will always remember him as that he wrote for Final Wars. Maybe fans should have called him the Final War man.
Yeah. Also, what's interesting about him, he has also done some music for some other films. He did one for Nighthawks, which starred Sylvester Stallone and Billy D. Williams and who was that other 80s guy? Oh, Rutger Hauer. It's a great film if you haven't seen it.
Oh, I haven't heard it. I mean, maybe I'll go check it out someday.
Yeah, and some of his themes in there. I mean, I could somewhat hear little bits of what he was trying to put into Final Wars in that film, but you got to remember this is in the early 80s when he did that, so you're going to notice a lot of differences. But it was definitely a good film. Definitely check it out.
Maybe I will. And also let's talk about the coolest character in this film. I mean, wait right there. I have a photo right up here, and
Oh yeah, definitely gotta get that.
I would like to talk about this guy.
Oh yes, the man, the myth.
Yep, Don Fry. I would like to talk about his character, and that he plays the Mason Captain Douglas Gordon, which I'm like doing a cosplay of his character like right now. I mean, well, almost, because I don't have his captain hat. I mean, I just have my Kiryu squad. Yeah, and I can't do a cosplay without the mustache.
Definitely got to have that mustache.
Yeah, and before I talk about his character, I mean, we did met Don Fry at G-Fest like not too long ago. That was back in July this year.
Mm-hmm. I've met him twice, and both times very nice to me. Always joking, not just with me, everybody. He was cracking jokes with everybody. He was he's an old school soul. Definitely not a guy to be messed with, but if you treat him right, he will treat you right.
Yeah, and I guess I remember when I met him this year. He was so awesome. He was so nice, and he's just such an awesome guy, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of one of my uncles, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, and so yeah, Don Fry is so nice, and I'll never forget when I first when I was in line to meet and greet with him at G-Fest. I mean, I remember when I introduced him to my podcast, I give him my business card, and then I was offering if he could be a special guest on my podcast in this episode, which it never happened. I mean, I did give him my business card. I'll never forget what he asked me. Like, if you want me to be a guest on your podcast, hey, it's okay if I have your phone number to, so I can contact you. And I did give him. I give the Captain Douglas Gordon himself my cell phone number, and yeah, so I did. If he tries to, like if he ever wants to contact me, if he wants to be a guest on my show and all that, and I was just surprised, and then I never give my phone number to a celebrity.
Hey, I'm crossing my fingers for you. Never say never. He might surprise you.
Yeah, never say never.
But yeah, there's a lot to talk about with Don Fry. I mean, first off, his UFC record: 20 wins to nine losses, I think, and one, I'm guessing, is one tie, or well, it says one NC. I'll admit I don't know exactly what that means right now. Just wanted to have that factoid ready here. But not only that, he was also a pro wrestler.
That's right. He was a wrestler.
He wasn't in WWF, but I believe
you mean WWE. You mean?
Well, I will never call it that name because I grew up with it being called WWF. I'm old school when it comes to pro wrestling.
Yeah, well, and he's been in G-Fest a few times. Because I remember he was in 2014.
Yes,
was he?
I think it was 2014. Yes, and another time he came in 2008. Or wait, yeah, 2008.
Yeah, he did. He was with Megumi Ogata. She played my favorite character in Heisei.
And, I've met her too. Total sweetheart.
Yeah, and I remember I did met Don Fry in 2018 because my first G-Fest was back in 2015, and when I never, like, I did met Don Fry in 2018, but I never got the chance to take a photo with him or autograph because I was so busy in line and Miki Sugusa herself, because she is my favorite.
I understand. What matters is you did meet him and get the photo this year.
Yeah, and we all know that Don Fry, he was supposed to be at G-Fest last year, but he was hospitalized. And
yeah, I remember when they announced that, and I was like, oh man, I hope he's okay. I was praying for him.
And last year at G-Fest, I never got any photo taken or autographs with any Godzilla celebrities last year. Because I was so busy hanging out with my friends and all that, and I was having a good time. But I did actually got to meet him this year, and it just made my day. And Don Fry, he was an awesome guy. And so let's talk about his character.
Tim Gordon.
Yeah, I mean, when I first watched this, I mean, he is the only guy who speaks English in the whole entire film.
Well, I mean, if you look at the whole film, there are a few people who do actually speak English throughout the script, even though they are dubbed over later, which another example we'll get into later. But there are moments, even when the Japanese cast are saying very few lines in surprise English for us.
Yeah, like that one guy, he defeat Abra saying, "Sorry, I'm a vegetarian."
Or, "Hey, watch it, X-Man."
I mean, I only watched that film in English dub. I mean, a few times growing up, but not so much in the original Japanese language. And so yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like Don Fry. I mean, his character. I mean, I was gonna say, I know I mentioned that he's the only one who speaks English in the whole entire film, but he's not the only one. Some other celebrities in there. I mean, but if you own the original Japanese DVD of it, I mean, he was actually being dubbed over in Japanese.
I haven't seen that version yet. I know they did. I don't think I've ever watched that version. I do need to one of these days, just so I can say I did.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, but I'm glad but I did watch it in Japanese. I mean, they did, but they never been in Japanese overdubbed in the TriStar DVD or Blu-ray version.
Yeah, I do have the Japanese release. I haven't switched it to the full one that you're talking about, that track. I just have the original track that has both his American lines along with the Japanese language.
Yeah, I mean, I was just he's like my favorite character. I mean, I did learn so much about him. I mean, growing up, I mean, he did run the what's it, the Kotango? Is it
Yes, the Gotango,
which was inspired by this Toho classic film. I forgot what it's called. That has the first appearance of Amanda. What was it?
Atragon.
Atragon. Yeah. The mother. The ship was in Atragon, which I never seen before.
Yes, I'm actually. I'll admit I'm not too knowledgeable on the whole battleship Yamato thing, but I do know that it's the idea of it. I don't know if it's. I'm embarrassed to say I don't fully know now if it's based on an actual Japanese Navy ship or if that's what they called it back then. But I do know that many films have used the term battleship Yamato, animes, and all that. So I have yet to look into that more and discover more about what that is. I've always been intrigued by it.
Yeah, and
oh, nice.
And I did got this at G Fest this year, and it is the new Bandai monster movie series of Manda from Final Wars.
Yeah, I did get that same one from another event. I believe it was Kaiju Days. My friend Nathan, who runs that, I believe I got it from them there.
Nathan from Monster Island Film Vault?
I think we're thinking about the same. He has that table in those events he calls Kaiju Days. I remember. Remember he would bring his event over to the space golf area.
Oh yeah. Oh, you talk about the one that has Anthony who runs that.
Yeah, that Nathan.
I know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. I thought you talked about Nathan from Monster Island Film Vault.
Oh no, I'm talking about Nathan, the dealer from Kaiju Days.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. And
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, so yeah, I mean, I like the underwater scene of the Cortenga Manda is just so awesome. I mean, I liked when Manda was caught in the flames. Maybe they should call Manda like Flamin' Manda.
That was a pretty interesting effect. Even though it was, I think it was a little bit CGI done, even though they were using a prop at times.
Yeah, and
I did love the glowing effect of that when they were trying to go straight into the lava or near where the lava was to use the heat to get him off the ship.
Yeah, that was like amazing effect, and I like the way that Captain Gordon's commander officer, who's played by Kunumi Mizuno, which she played my favorite character in Ebra Horror of the Deep.
And, mine too. One of my favorites.
Yeah, as you know, this was Kunumi Mizuno's like last Godzilla film she's in. I mean,
yes, and her character's name in the film is actually an homage to her name in I'm trying to find her character's name.
Emikawa?
Yes, they do use Earth Defense Force Commander Akiko Namikawa.
Yeah, Namikawa. Yeah, I was
Master Zero.
Yeah, it's like, and I like the way when they're having a little argument saying, so you gave your mouth shut. I mean, you know what I just been through.
This time you won't be able to escape court-martial.
Yeah.
I'll undergo your court-martial or anything else you have. So just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. I gotta say, I love his accent. I mean,
oh yeah, he just sounds like he came straight from the farm, and I love it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like the M organization or what's it called? The Earth Defense Forces just hired a farmer to join the team. It kind of looks like it.
Yeah. I think James Rolfe in his Godzilla-thon for Cinemassacre described him best, claiming that he reminded him of Sergeant Slaughter from G.I. Joe.
Yeah, almost does.
Yeah. With Sergeant Slaughter with hair. And I'm not making fun of Sergeant Slaughter. I've met him personally. Great guy. Definitely not a guy I would ever want to make mad, like Don Fry, because he's a tough guy in his own right. But I do hear it in the voice.
Yeah, he has the voice, and I gotta have James Rolfe in my podcast someday in the future.
Oh, I'd love to see that, man.
Yeah, because
before he's very friendly.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of that guy, and maybe I'll have James Rolfe on my show someday. And so yeah, I want to talk about Godzilla himself.
Oh yes, got to talk about this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember after I discovered this film and I watched it. I mean, I gotta say that this Godzilla design looks awesome. I mean, it looks like they just made Godzilla look skinnier in his previous films.
Yeah, and there's a lot of explanation as to why they did that. I have my notes right here. Let me just consort with them. And you'll have to understand that I was going through several sites like Wikizilla and Toho Kingdom, and they were using sources from looks like Godzilla Final Wars Super Complete Works and an interview with Shinichi Wakasa for Godzilla King of the Monster Maker, and also an online interview he did with Henshin Online with Keith Aiken. We might as well just dive right into it. I'll let you kind of go through it, but we do got to talk about the man of the hour who played him. Introduce him as I keep mispronouncing his first name, but he has said at G-Fest, just call him Tom Kitagawa.
Oh, are you talking about the guy who played in the Godzilla suit and the rest of some of the Millennium films?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some people call him T Kitagawa. He has told people it's okay, just call him Tom Kitagawa. But how? Let me just find his name.
Yeah, sometimes I have a hard time with these Japanese names, and yeah, this is so hard to say them.
It started with a T and then an S and then oh man, where is he? Don't tell me he's all the way at the bottom here. I'm using IMDb just for the record. Come on, where are you? Man, this list goes on forever. There's so many.
Okay. Well,
wait here. Okay. Oh, okay. Here it is. Tsutomu Kitagawa. It's Tsutomu Kitagawa. So Sutomu. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I mean,
I'm horrible at pronouncing Japanese names, so please forgive me.
That's okay, Billy. You're not the only one. I have a hard time pronouncing these Japanese names too. But yeah, I mean, he was at the All Monsters Attack convention in Chicago, like back in May. I mean, I actually met him for the first time, and he was awesome. And I got his autograph, which is hanging up on my wall right there. And you couldn't see it because it's right behind the camera.
Oh yes, I've actually. Let me, as I'm saying this, let me try and find my photo with him. Celebs. Here's an epic photo of me and Mark Justice. If you remember him, he did some music for my film Godzilla Battle Royale. We were hanging outside at the Crown Plaza Hotel, one of the G-Fests. I can't remember which one, but Tom Kitagawa came right outside and he asked to join us for smoking some cigars. And wait, let me find the photo. It's a little blurry, but
Nice.
there's me and Mark Justice puffing on some cigars with him. And he took another
Mark Justice,
right there.
I actually had Mark Justice in one of my episodes, and he was in Mark Justice. He was in my podcast episode of Godzilla versus Mega Godzilla 2.
Nice.
Just a few months ago.
Nice. I definitely want to listen to that one when I get another long car ride to listen to some stuff too. Mark's a great guy. Always loved him.
Oh yeah, he is awesome. And here's a picture of me and him at the All Monsters Attack convention back in May. And
was he kind of showing you the Godzilla stance that he does?
He actually does. I actually did it with him. Yeah, and this was his last time playing Godzilla in the Millennium era. I mean, he except for one film in GMK.
Yeah, they used another guy, and he was actually at All Monsters Attack as well, I think. or maybe not the one in Chicago, but the one in Indianapolis. I think he was. I met him too. Very good guy.
Yeah, he was a good guy. And what I heard about, I want to talk about more about the suit design. I mean, they actually used 3 suits for this film.
Yep.
And I don't know if one of them they just used for water scenes, but I don't know. But I learned in Winkyzilla they use a suit for action, super action, or close-ups. I don't know if they actually use one for water scenes, but that's my guess. I mean,
you are correct. They said the first one was used for close-ups, the second one for action, and then for super action. And the interesting thing is they were almost going to use the Tokyo SOS and Godzilla X Mechagodzilla suit for Godzilla. But after a screen test, they were trying to see if it would be practical for the high intense fighting action scenes that the script demanded. And Wakasa and Ryuhei Kitamura, the director, were just like, no, this isn't going to work, because you have to understand with the Tokyo SOS suit, the way the shoulders are made, they're just made to go down with your arms like this and like this. And the biggest motion he could probably get out of the hands is this kind of very Heisei style, where it's just the shoulder stuck in place. And trying to punch like that, it'd be like, it's hard to describe, but you get what I'm trying to say. He wouldn't be able to have much range.
yeah.
So
yeah, that was very interesting. And I think they actually use one of these suits. I think they used the action. I think they used the action suit for one of the short films, like for the short films of Godzilla versus Hedorah for the 50th anniversary one, and also for for the Gigan short film.
Actually, it
not
was
the God.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Like not the Gigan Rex short film, but the live action short film.
Yeah, what you're referring to here is mentioned in Manabu Kimura's Godzilla Final Wars Completion, and what they mentioned in there is that there were several attraction suits that were made when the film was released. So these attraction suits one of them was used at the Hollywood premiere that you saw when he was getting the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That suit wasn't used in the film, but it was used from the original cast made to make the movie suits. So they just had them as extras for press releases and other things of that nature. So, but they did keep those and maintain them. I think they were even using them when you go into that Godzilla hotel, maybe, or I don't know if it's there or if they were showing it at shows around Japan. I've seen multiple photos of it on Facebook all the time, and I'm always wondering, where is this? I want to see this in person. But though one of those what was used in the Godzilla versus Hedorah and the what was it called here? Fest Godzilla 3 Gigan Attacks. And both of these were directed by Kazuhiro Nakagawa. And both times, the man inside that Godzilla suit, because Monsters Inc., who Shinichi Wakasa owns, who worked on the suits for Godzilla Final Wars, they came back and refitted the attraction suit to fit. His name was Naoya Matsumoto, and he had a slightly different body build than Kitagawa, so they had to reformat and refit and retouch up the suit a little bit. And you'll notice there are some minor differences to the suit compared to his original look, because I think the fins were, if I remember, it's been a while since I watched it, but I think the spikes were a lot more white than natural bone color. And you could tell that the suits had looked pretty old, even though they resurfaced them a bit, and that the suit was almost kind of looking like Godzilla 72 at the end of versus Gigan in the Showa era. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
I'm
As
talk here.
Oh, that you're okay, Billy. I mean, you did had a little glitches. You did had some freezing
Oh,
scenes or glitches, and
did you need me to repeat any?
that's. Oh no! You sound perfectly. There's not. It's just the screen keeps freezing for a few seconds, and you're good, Billy. You're good.
Okay. I was just trying to make sure I cited my source, where I got it from, and yeah, because I want to try to have my information as accurate as possible. I'm not perfect all the time with my Godzilla knowledge, but I try.
That's okay, Billy. And yeah, and I definitely need to check out that Godzilla hotel in Japan. I mean,
Yeah.
I never been to Japan before, but I want to go there just to check out the hotel.
Eventually, I want to get down there too. But you know what? Everybody from G Fest, any of my friends who have gone to Japan, all said, bring money, a lot of it.
Yeah, and if I was in that Godzilla hotel room, I would be in heaven.
Oh yeah, you know what? I'm almost tempted to just start saving up a few years just to spend a few nights in there.
Yeah. So let's talk about like the mutants, like the M organization and the mutant humans. I mean, when I watched this, I mean, I was like, they never had any kind of mutant humans, ninja fighter style in any Godzilla film.
No, not that I remember.
I mean, didn't they use one of the mutant humans in the other Toho films back then before Final Wars? I mean, it's just, and it's okay you don't know. I mean,
Well, if you want to count like movies like The Human Vapor or some of their other sci-fi / horror films of the classic era, I'm trying to remember. One was like The Human Vapor, and we could also maybe throw in Matango. If you're talking about mutants, it depends on what our standard we're going by is. Like humans that turn into monsters, or with beings of extraordinary abilities that a normal human wouldn't have. I'm sure if you extend that definition, we could technically say there were mutant characters in Toho films before, but sorry, I'm a little nervous and I'm trying to remember.
that's okay.
Yeah,
And it's okay to be nervous and yeah. So the mutant humans are just.
Oh, sorry. One just came to mind. So sorry. H-Man. That's another one. I've seen bits and pieces of all these, and I did see that some human characters develop abilities to which we could call them mutant characters, maybe. But if you don't want to count those in the sense of what Final Wars is going through, I understand that too.
Yeah, and also, Billy, I would like to talk about more the other human characters. I mean, let's talk about the human character who was in the original Godzilla film, the one and only Air Takarada.
Yes, Akira Takarada, man of the hour.
Yep, and this was his very last Godzilla film. Yeah, a few years before he passed away last year.
Yes, definitely his last Godzilla film. I know people will not count Godzilla Battle Royale because that's a fan film.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about, he did do that one film, The Great Buddha Arrival, which is, I don't know if you want to technically count that as a kaiju film. I haven't seen it yet, and I've been wanting to, but he was the narrator of that.
And yeah, I mean, but fans will always remember him from the original Godzilla film, and
yes,
and since they made Final Wars, they decided like, why not bring Air Takarada since he was in the original, and they kind of want him in. I mean, and they did, and this time he has a beard in this film, and
Oh,
and
he just looks very snazzy in this film.
yeah, and he does an amazing job in this, and they were gonna have like his that has some other characters from the original Godzilla film, like his like like the little girlfriend whose character and the actress name escapes me.
Oh, are you talking about from the original Gojira 54?
Yeah,
Hold on, let me bring it up. Uh, Momoko Kochi, who played Emiko Yomane.
Yeah, Emiko, and yeah, he played Emiko, and it's also they're gonna bring the actor who played Dr. Sarasawa, but apparently those two passed away a few years back.
Well, actually, let me point this out. Sorry, I don't want to go into correcting mode or anything, but Momoko Kochi died in 1998.
Yeah, I mean,
And then Akihito Harada, they had actually tried to get him in Godzilla 1985, and he was going to come in, but he passed away of cancer before filming could start in July 25th of 1984.
yeah, and the woman who played Emiko, and she passed away like a few years after her very last Godzilla film, Godzilla versus Destroyer.
Yep, Desatoya.
Yeah, that kind of brings back from my Destroyer episode. Yes.
We do actually, like you mentioned, have Kenji Sahara coming back. And he's probably been in arguably the most Godzilla films of any actor who has continuously come back.
Are you talking about who was in some of the Heisei films and some
Yes.
and the Kiryu saga?
Um, let me peruse through his profile. No, he was in Mechagodzilla '93. He was in Space Godzilla. I remember that. And he had very bit roles in some of the other older films like Terra Mechagodzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and he's just, if you count all the Godzilla films he's been in, he's probably been the most recurring actor in any Godzilla of all the Godzilla films. Sorry.
Oh, and I like to talk about the one scene when Eric Tagawa's character was talking to that woman who's played by she was actually the granddaughter of Kumizuno.
Yeah, I'm dumbfounded because you know what? I never really knew that until just a few days ago.
Yeah, I mean that Kumizuno was in this film, and it also brings in her granddaughter in this film too. I mean, this is kind of like a daughter and a grandma and granddaughter film.
It explains where she got her loveliness from.
Yeah, I mean, and I also like that they're having a conversation, and he brings up about his dog, like, and
That was a nice touch.
And also, like, this film also, I like to talk about, like, this film also kind of has a mixed references like Star Wars, Superman, and some other ninja films, or like Independence Day kind of style, and also there are some scenes that kind of reminds me of John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah.
And which we'll get to that later. I mean, and I like to let's get to the monsters.
Yes.
I mean, they have all of them there, like Anguirus, King Caesar, and of course Zilla.
Yeah.
And my favorite kaiju, Ebera.
Yes, Ebero was a very good design, I thought, and they. Sorry,
and Rodan.
Rodan.
That's okay. I like to talk about Ebra's scene, and I like to when the mutant humans are. It's like they're just gonna take this lobster down by just using machine guns and ninja style moves, and
Yeah, that was definitely a different concept for a Godzilla film in the fact that we're proposing we're going to take two humans with superhuman mutant capabilities taking on a giant lobster. Sure, we've seen the tanks and the military fight these monsters, but two individuals with high powered Mesa rifles actually take down a kaiju. That was
yeah,
fascinating in itself. And
yeah, no army tanks, no laser cannons. It's just the human mutant characters. They just take down that lobster, and
yeah,
of course I brought up this line earlier. Say, sorry, I'm a vegetarian.
I love that line. That came out of nowhere the first time I saw it. I'm like, whoa, what did he say?
And he says it in English in the
Yes.
original Japanese, and
Keep going. I was just trying to find some tidbits I mentioned on Ebra in my notes, but go on.
and but first let's talk about the first monster appeared in this film is Rodan. I mean, Rodan design, it looks so awesome.
Oh yes.
They try to almost capture the original Rodan, and they actually did. And Radon, or Rodan, I mean, whatever you want to call it. I mean, he had this who plays in this film was played by a woman. I don't know
Oh
if you, I don't know if you know that.
no, I didn't know that actually. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, for the suitmation, but the rest of Rodan's like flying abilities is just all CGI. And what I love the part was that Rodan was just goes on a rampage in New York City. New York City. I
Yeah.
mean, I also like the part when let's talk about the cop scene and is
Mhm.
taking this guy's car saying, "Hey man, what are you doing with my car, man?"
Yeah, most fans, or a lot of fans, actually, and I remember hearing this even in the early days of Tokyo Monsters after the film came out, and we're all talking about the trivia of it. Apparently, some F words were dropped in the original cut of that scene.
Yeah, because the actor was it Nick Presley?
Mick Preston
Mick,
played the cop, and then I forget his first name, but something Washington played the pimp that he's arguing with.
yeah, because he keeps saying the F word, and because so they have him overdubbed him.
I think they overdubbed both of them, yeah, they overdubbed everybody in that scene. You can tell.
Yeah, and then I forgot who was that other guy's name who played that little hippie guy with the pink coolest car. And
No, well, there was the pimp he was arguing with, and then there was the homeless dude nearby
yeah,
laughing at what was going on.
yeah, he was like he's almost like he's watching live television saying, "Yeah, great, go."
Yeah,
Yeah,
the best. I need to drop James Rolfe again here. In his Godzillathon, it was so funny that when he was reviewing the film, he's like, "Oh, and according to Toho, this is what goes on in New York City." The whole
yeah,
scene is out, and he's like, "Yeah, guess that's about right."
yeah. Well, apparently this scene that they filmed that wasn't actually filmed in New York City. It was actually filmed in Sydney, Australia.
Yep.
Yeah, and I didn't even notice that until I looked it up.
Yeah,
And
they only shot a few scenes or a few sequences and pan shots in New York City. So technically, yes, they did film in New York City, but nowhere near as much as we thought they did.
yeah, yeah, and then I didn't even notice that, but I think they did a few filming in Shanghai, or was it?
Yes, Shanghai, China, they filmed in, and
Yeah,
multiple locations in Japan, in New York, and Paris. They did film in Paris,
yep,
and uh, And in Arizona, that's not Arizona you're seeing. That's just a desert in Australia.
Yep, that's right. And yeah, with that whole with that RV guy who was on TV, it's like, come on, man.
I don't know if they were intentionally trying to make us think that was Kevin Smith. We kind of like him a little bit.
Oh yeah. I also liked when Radon flies over them and they were like, and their flies coming off with some cartoon sound effects like whoop.
I was like, well, I don't know what the purpose of that was, but it was still funny.
Yeah, I mean, they never had any cartoon sound effects in any Godzilla film, but this is like the first time they used cartoon sound effects in just one scene.
Yeah.
The
scene still worked for what it was.
Yeah, and I like the part in Shanghai when Anguirus is attacking Shanghai, and Shanghai that's where China is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a little mixed if it's take place in China or Korean. I don't know.
Well, it was China, Shanghai. I'm pretty sure it was Shanghai.
Yeah, Anguirus in this one this is the first time Anguirus first return since Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla in 1974.
Yep. I think they had wanted to use Anguirus again in one of the Heisei films. Sorry. Which one was it? Was it Destroya or was it?
Yes, Destroya.
Okay.
They were gonna bring Anguirus and Destroya, but they kind of cut that part out, and so
or what they were trying to do the Godzilla versus Ghost Godzilla before Destroya that they were going to propose Anguirus be in that one.
That's right.
I can't remember, but I heard something about that.
Yeah, but yeah, this is like Anguirus' first return in all these years. Yeah, and Anguirus he looks amazing in this film, and they were gonna have Anguirus in GMK, which is for the original title, Godzilla, Baram, Anguirus, and Baragon, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, but they just removed those characters, replaced them with King Ghidorah and Mothra.
Yeah, I really wish they had gone with that idea. I'll admit, GMK is kind of a love-hate film for me. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And I understand to a lot of Godzilla fans, GMK is the number one. Or they really love it, or they really respect it. I understand. Kaneko, great guy. I've met him in person, but I think we can all agree that Kaneko was really held back by Toho in a way to where he wasn't allowed to give us the vision he wanted to give. And I think a large part of that was the Anguirus, Varan, and Baragon concept that you're talking about.
Yeah, and yeah, and this is like and also I figure out that they made Anguirus into a giant deadly spike ball.
I was like, finally, from the games, they finally.
Yes, they actually made it. Yes, they actually made it inspired by the two video game classics, Destroy All Monsters Melee and Save the Earth.
Oh, I always had fun using that move in that game.
Yeah, and so yeah, and they actually used it in one of the flying Kotengo ships, and you know that one of the captains in who flies the ship, and it was you remember that one scene where they has the long hair, blonde hair woman who runs in. She was actually the same woman who was in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2.
Yes. She had some weird hairstyle going on, but I believe it was her, yes.
Yeah, and this is like her second Godzilla film she's in.
Actually, she might have I think she had a bit role in versus Biolante, where she was a reporter. If I'm thinking of the same actress, at the very beginning when they're going over the stock footage of Godzilla '85, and she's the one saying, "The city of Tokyo looks more like a ghost town."
Oh, I didn't.
I
That
think
was her.
that's her, but I could be wrong.
But who knows? If the audience in the comments would know this, please let us know if she was in it. Please let us know in the comments.
I'm not saying it is, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if somebody could either confirm or correct that, thank you.
Yeah, and but yeah, I mean, and also they also bring King Caesar in this film. It's like this is King Caesar's second Godzilla film.
Yeah.
I mean, his first appearance was in versus Mecha Godzilla, and as I mentioned in my Godzilla versus Mega Godzilla podcast episode with Donzilla, that King Caesar was inspired by the Shisa statues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and but in this film, I mean, in the original King Caesar, the suit of that, his fur was long, and he has, and they have his eyes were like diamond red eyes, and
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
But in this film, I mean, they made his fur short, and and then they made his eyes like human eyes. I mean, and they made his ears longer.
Yeah, and I believe the same guy who portrayed Monster X, Motokune Nakigawa, also portrayed King Caesar or Shisa, or however you want to say his name. I will admit. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. He also played Kiryu in the Kiryu saga.
Yes, he did. I believe he was at All Monsters Attack as well, wasn't he?
I'm not sure.
I think he was at the Indianapolis one, if I'm not mistaken. And if he was, he was definitely. I met a whole bunch of them, and my memory is going as to who played in what, but I do believe he was one of the guests there.
Yeah, and also I want to talk about Gigan.
Yes, Gigan. Definitely got to talk about that redesign.
Yeah, I mean, they actually bring back Gigan. I mean, he was only in two Shona Godzilla films, and he was also in this TV show with Godzilla.
Zone Fighter.
Oh, what's that called?
Zone Fighter.
Oh, Zone Fighter.
He was in one episode, and man, did they destroy him.
Yeah, I never seen the series, but I would definitely watch it someday.
I definitely highly recommend you watch it, because if you ever wanted something closest to Godzilla meets the Power Rangers, it's that.
Yeah, maybe I'll check it out someday. And so yeah, and Gigan in this one, they just made Gigan look more skeleton mummy looking.
Yes,
and kind of like
a great job with him.
Yeah, but except they didn't make him like green or yellow.
No, I actually prefer the dark blue color. It just makes him look more menacing, more evil. And the slimmed down appearance, along with the longer and sharper looking spikes and six and everything. When I first saw that design on Tokyo Monsters, I was excited. And another thing that made me so happy, because as a kid, when I first saw Godzilla vs. Gigan, and I had the VHS cover from New World Cinema, or whichever that was distributing at the time. I'm losing my memory on what that name was, but it showed, the publicity still showed him firing a laser out of his head. And when I saw the film, I never saw the damn laser. And as a kid, I'm like, that's false advertisement. But we finally got an eye laser.
Yeah, because they finally give Gigan the eye laser, kind of like in the video games.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when he shoots the eye laser out, before it hits the target, it shotguns out. And I just love that effect.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, and they also gave new. I think they used 2 suits for it. I mean, one is for the knife hands and the chainsaw hands.
They might have. I do think that I don't know, possibly, but I think the buzzsaw hands, they just made those separately and connected them according to the scene. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I mean maybe, but who knows? I mean, and also like, and everyone has been shocked, and including me, that they brought back Godzilla's adopted son, Milla.
Minya, or the whole thing about Minya, and even in publicity, books, and movies, all spell his name out as Manila. I never understood that when they never called him that. It's weird spelling of pronunciation, Minya. Yeah, that sounds better. But I was a little skeptical on them bringing him back because of the goofy nature of Godzilla's Revenge and Son of Godzilla. Although Son of Godzilla, I will admit, has grown on me. I used to not like it, but every time I see that ending in Son of Godzilla, my heart just melts.
Yeah, because of the snow scene. And
if a Godzilla film could ever have a Christmas moment, that would probably be the closest to it. And I always do watch it on Christmas.
Yeah, I always watch Son of Godzilla on Christmas whatever time it snowed outside.
But I think in Godzilla Final Wars, they took it to another level. They tried to kind of replicate that moment, but use it in a different way. Did it have the same emotional effect? Maybe not, but Minya was kind of trying to play the peacemaker. And I do have it in my notes here that one of the intentions of making Godzilla in this, let me just try and find it. Oh, here it is. From Toho Sci-Fi Tokusatsu Film Series Special Edition 2005 from Taguchi Saman. I have in my notes here that Kitamura didn't want the ending to be gruesome, so he depicted Godzilla forgiving humanity as something he had not done in Godzilla so far. And Kiriyami proposes that Minya stop Godzilla and includes an explanation of the relationship between Godzilla and humans as a line from Taguchi. So that's what I had here. And they didn't want... there's another factoid I was looking for here that Ryuhei Kitamura had intended for Godzilla to... I'm sorry. Carry on. I'll find it later and try and mention it later. I don't want to hold it up. I didn't really prepare these notes in the best fashion.
Yeah, that's okay. And also for Minya in this one, they kind of just made him like in All Monsters Attack, but he doesn't talk, and it just made him like human size, and with Kensha, the kid, and his grandpa. And then there were some funny moments of with them and Minya. Like I like the car scene. I mean, they have and they actually have Minya has his seatbelt on.
That actually, when they had him in the back of the pickup truck and he was like very excited and happy, that was kind of a funny moment.
Yeah, it was just. Yeah, I liked the one when he was just looking through the back of the truck window. It was like when Kent and his grandpa were talking, and then he was like. But I liked the part when he's had his seatbelt on and was trying to turn the wheel. Like, I laughed so hard at that.
You're gonna get us in a car wreck here.
Is that you can't drive?
Oh, that would have taken that film to a whole new level of ridiculousness.
Yeah. And
But
also, I
yeah.
want to talk about more about let's talk about the Exilians.
Yes,
The,
gotta talk
they
about.
they actually had them inspired by the by Invasion of Astro Monster film. They usually use the same name. I think one of them was played by the same guy who was in the original film, wasn't it?
I possibly, although, wait, let me just. Okay, controller of Planet X. Not this guy, but the other guy. Keep talking. I'll try and find him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they brought back the Exilians, and then I like the evil Exilian kid guy. It's like he is so evil. He's
Oh, yeah,
almost acting like childish. And I like his laugh. I mean, not the Japanese laugh, but I liked the English dub version of his laugh. Like,
yes. Who we're talking about there is Kazuki Kitamura, and he is quite a remarkable actor. He's actually one of my favorite actors in the whole film. I don't want to compare, but he stands out the most to me because he is one of the best Godzilla villains we had seen in quite some time, and he's probably the best we've seen since Mughal from Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla and Terror Mechagodzilla.
yeah, yeah.
And just his charisma alone sells his character. And he's been in other films. You may have saw him briefly in Kill Bill Volume 1. He's one of the 3 that try and attack Uma Thurman, first date, that fighter. And she just lays waste to all 3 of them. And then she makes the sword is ringing and she does this to make the sword stop ringing and they all fall dead.
I've heard about Kill Bill, but I never seen the film.
Definitely watch it. You'll notice him, and you'll also notice that other guy who was M commanding unit officer. Wait, no, that's not him. But there was another guy from Kill Bill Volume 1 who is the guy who gets beheaded by Lucy Liu, who was in the Gotengo. He was the second in command on the Gotengo, the older guy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find his name here. And he was also briefly in Shin Godzilla as one of the commanders.
That's right.
I'm sorry, IMDb is acting up with me here.
That's okay.
But I was also trying to find that other Exilian guy you were talking about, because I think he was also in Kill Bill Volume 1 as the guy that when Uma Thurman goes to Okinawa and she's getting the sword from Hattori Hanzo's assistant, I believe, is the same guy who played the older Exilian commander. The one that Kitamura shoots later on.
Yeah. And I also I know this, the Exilians, they use the same plot from Invasion of Astro Monsters. They become friendly, but they lie to them. They're actually trying to invade their Earth and
an offer that sounded too good to be true.
And their mothership, it always makes me think of the giant Epcot ball from Disney World.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, and then they actually save the Secretary General, as Air Takarada's character, and which is not really him. There are actually Exilians disguised as him.
Yeah, that was an interesting concept for sure, and that's kind of where you wanted to go with a little bit of the John Carpenter's The Thing reference.
Yeah, like that scene when after he got shot, his head split open. That kind of always makes me think of that the dog's head split open is his skeleton shells. It's like from John Carpenter's The Thing.
Now I'll show you what I already know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the blood tests and
Yes. And
yeah,
they should have done that first to avoid the mess.
yeah. Speaking of blood tests, they actually did there was like a blood test scene after that guy took a knife. It was like at the Secretary General's hand, like they say he's the traitor. Yeah,
Oh yes, that was actually the same actor who was in Godzilla 2000 and GMK. He
that's
was
right.
he was the nerdy guy who was the main character's friend who was trying to help him in Godzilla 2000, and his name escapes me, but most out there will know who I'm referring to. But he's always been a great character actor in a lot of Japanese films that I've seen him in.
Yeah, and when they did took his blood test and he's not human, and this is kind of a John Carpenter's The Thing references.
Yeah. Okay. So the other guy we were talking about was Boss Tanaka in Kill Bill. His name is Jun Kunimura. He was the second in command on the Gotengo.
Yeah,
And then, oh, come on, don't do that. Bald guy sushi shop. Okay, Kenji. I want to confirm this while we're hot on the subject. Okay, you know what? I was wrong. The guy who I thought was the other Exilian commander, I thought it was Kenji Oba, but it doesn't appear so. So I do apologize. I'm mistaken there.
that's okay. And
yeah,
I like to talk about when they finally re-release the monsters, and then their only hope is to stop them is Godzilla, and their idea is to release free Godzilla from the ice, have them defeat all the monsters, and then lock them back up, like Captain Gordon did before. And when they released the Kotengo, and then when they finally made it to the South Pole, we did hear some Godzilla versus Mega Godzilla theme.
Yep.
Yeah, and those and the two guys who are keep an eye on the Frozen Godzilla. I mean, those two were actually real life pro wrestlers. I mean,
I was
they're
wondering about that. Those guys were jacked. They were muscled up, and I kind of wanted to see more of these guys because they seemed pretty interesting.
I mean, they weren't in WWE.
No, I would have known if they were in WWE. I think they could have been big in Japan for all I know, like in New Japan, or because there's the New Japan and the other Japanese promotion escapes me right now, but or New Japan and All Japan. Sorry, they might have been there at the time. I'll have to look into that now that you said that they were pro wrestlers because I never knew that.
Yeah, and I noticed that one of them was wearing invisible braces. I used to have invisible braces back then.
Oh, like what's the term? Like you don't really see them, but wow, my brain is really scattered because
well, if you look
hard to
carefully,
remember everything right now.
yeah, I like
porcelain.
yeah, I like the part when they say, Glenn, which they actually use in Invasion of Astromos. It's like, what? The Kotango survived. It's like we're not the only ones left. Really? Is that all you can say? Really? It's like the world is ruined. Yeah, there's nothing we can do. And I laughed so hard at this. Like,
Godzilla. Now, going back to Mechagodzilla, I do want to point something out that the director Ryuhei Kitamura was admittedly a huge fan of Godzilla during the 70s, especially Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. And even during my research, it definitely said that he was a big fan of that and he wanted to bring a little more of that Godzilla back. However, one wish I really wanted to happen in Godzilla Final Wars was bring Mechagodzilla back again.
Yeah, that was the director's favorite film.
Yeah, and I'm sure if it was his choice and he had the financials, he would have probably done it. I can't prove if he would have or not. I did read on it, and I can't really find an exact source, but the Japanese Wikipedia does say that apparently in some of the first drafts, it was proposed that they wanted to have Kiru in Godzilla Final Wars, but in the Gotengo's place. So Captain Gordon and the mutants and everybody would have been inside Kiru trying to get Godzilla to fight all the monsters. And I'm assuming he would have taken part in the final battle with Gigan and Monster X. But
Yeah.
also, or actually, no, they were proposing Kiru, and instead of Monster X, just have King Ghidorah. And in place of Zilla was apparently going to be Gorosaurus.
Yeah, Gorosaurus was supposed to be in this one, but they think they replaced it with Zilla.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got from that. Whether that's accurate or not, or holds water, I cannot prove that. That's just what I got from Wikipedia and a few other fan sites. Like I don't know if Wikipedia was one of the, or no, definitely the Japanese Wikipedia had it on there, but again, how accurate it is, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've had arguments with fans about this, so I don't want to claim that it's true.
Yeah, and I know you brought up the director. As you know, that he was actually in the film in that one scene. He was actually
The radio DJ.
Yeah, he was a radio host, and he actually hosted one of the Exilians named X.
Yeah,
I know that's not the same villain. Like this, I didn't think it's just some dude who just dressed up like the Exilians, that the main villain.
Mm-hmm.
It's just given a name like X.
Yeah. And do you not mind if we talk about the director just for a second here?
Okay.
And I'll try and make it quick. But Ryuhei Kitamura, he's known for quite a few other films like Versus. And there's quite a few cast from Versus that are in Godzilla Final Wars there. And this includes Tak Sakaguchi, and Kane Uotani, who were some of the X-bodyguards. He also made a film called Azumi, which he was also very famous for. Yasunori Takashima from that is also in Godzilla Final Wars as part of the Gotengo crew. Kazushi Uba from Versus is also part of the Gotengo crew. Hideo Sakaki from his film Alive is the deputy captain of the Euclair ship. I think the one from Paris when they're fighting Kamacuras.
Yeah.
And Yumi Kikuchi from his film Longinus, and Shinji Suzuki from Azumi played a few of the mutant soldiers. So he's got quite a few cast members from his previous films in there. I don't know if you've ever seen his film Versus or Azumi. I've seen Versus, and that was the film that really put him on the mark on the world. And what kind of the reason why Toho was looking at him to helm Godzilla Final Wars.
And
Yeah,
I would like to talk about I know I'm only gonna go through for every like fight scenes, and I like to talk about Zilla and the Anguirus and King Caesar Rodan fight scenes. I like to talk about that.
yes. Sorry, I hope I wasn't holding you up there. Let's
Oh no, you were good. And this is like the first film that ever had the original Toho Godzilla to fight his American allies, Zilla. Which for Zilla, I mean they the CGI of this, it doesn't familiar with the 1998 film. I mean, they actually scanned one of the Trendmaster figures, which I heard, and they just added. They just scanned it and they just added to the film, and I don't know if you noticed, Billy.
I think I've heard of that, but go on.
Yeah, and then but Zilla's design in this looks okay. I mean, I know I talk about a few parts of this in my Godzilla 1998 podcast episode with Nick Hubert. And if you want to check that out, I mean,
I'm definitely going to check all those out soon enough.
yeah, but I like to talk about the fight scene. I mean, this fight scene is only like a 1 second because when I watched it when I was a kid, I thought it was going to be a full fight, but
I
no,
loved a more full fight.
yeah, I would definitely go with the full fight, but no, they just had Zilla run towards him, and then Godzilla just blows his atomic breath, and Zilla just jumps over him, and Godzilla knocks him to with his tail crashing into the. Yeah, but they just blast him like with his atomic breath.
Yeah, and I think Matt Frank did a comic where he extends that battle a little more to where it's like, finally, we get a. I still need to read that comic, but I've seen some of the artwork from it. I'm like, wow, he made this fight look legit. Have you know what I'm talking about there?
Are you talking about one of Matt Frank's comics?
Yeah, the IDW comic where it's an issue where the Final Wars Godzilla is fighting Zilla again, but I think he fleshes that fight out a little bit more to where it's a little more even-sided. I think so. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I gotta have Matt Frank to be in one of my episodes in the future.
Definitely try. He a great guy. I've worked with him before. He did my poster for Godzilla Battle Royale.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh yeah, he did. One thing I want to talk about with Zilla is that Patrick Tatopoulos, and this is coming from a Henshin Headlines 2004 interview. Patrick Tatopoulos, the designer of TriStar Godzilla in the '98 film, was actually present at the Godzilla Final Wars world premiere in Los Angeles. And despite the way things were portrayed, the way you mentioned there, he was still honored to have his monster appear in an official Toho Godzilla film.
Yeah, and I also let's talk about the fight scene of Anguirus, King Caesar, and Rodan.
That was a little better.
Yeah, wish those were Godzilla's allies and friends.
Yes, it was a little jarring considering we would expect them to be fighting alongside each other and not against each other.
Yeah, because Godzilla was friends with them in the Shona era films.
However, you also got to remember that they intended this film to be a standalone film. It doesn't even follow Gojira 54. It's its own timeline.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't follow the original. It's just...
So this is the first film that actually ignores everything, even the original.
Yeah. And it's just... I mean, King Caesar, Anguirus, and Rodan were Godzilla's friends. I mean, they just finally go to a full fight together in this. And I know some people complain, why isn't Jet Jaguar in this one from Godzilla vs. Megalon? I mean, I know some Toho don't want to bring Jet Jaguar in this one because Jet Jaguar has nothing to do with Final Wars.
Look, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I don't hate Jet Jaguar. You are familiar with the story about how Jet Jaguar was conceived by that kid contest?
Yeah, wish I didn't. I think I did mention someone in my Godzilla vs. Megalon podcast episode with.
Oh, you still with me? Oh, sorry, we froze there for a minute. Go. Could you repeat that?
Oh, you didn't hear that? That I did. I think I did mention something like that in my Godzilla vs. Megalon podcast episode with Kaiju Kim.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I did mention that. I mean, yeah, but they just decided to throw Caesar, Anguirus, and Rodan in this. I mean, I know. I also love when Godzilla first turns to Anguirus. First they just warm back and forth. It's like they're talking, and then they kind of gives a little Godzilla versus Gigan reference. When they're, if you know what I mean, with the speech bubbles and the kind of like that. And then this fight scene is like the weirdest fight scene ever, because there was almost like they do a little volleyball or soccer style there.
It's kind of a throwback to the Showa era, which I did appreciate. My only complaint about that fight scene is it still needed to be extended about 3 to 5 minutes longer. All the fights in Godzilla Final Wars needed at least 2 to 3 to sometimes 5 minutes a little longer, because film that's titled Godzilla Final Wars, we need to see a little more Godzilla. I don't mind the humans fighting, and I was fine with that, but they needed to have a little bit more of the monsters to work with the whole intersplicing of the humans fighting and the monsters fighting.
Yeah. And and I also like when they kept Rodan, Anguirus, and King Caesar have on top of each other when after Godzilla defeats them. I mean, there was an earlier draft, and they actually cut that part out. They were gonna have Godzilla use his atomic breath on them, but they decided not to use that. Those are Godzilla's allies, and
I'm glad they didn't do that.
yeah, and then yes, but what I heard, I think they made a little video of that they used the actual suits from Final Wars, and they used the 2000 Godzilla suit in this video they did.
I think it was either for a pachinko game or for a slot machine game, one of the two. The Godzilla 2000 is facing Final Wars Anguirus, and then he's facing GMK King Ghidorah, and then he's facing Final Wars Gigan. And that was pretty awesome, what I saw.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, we need more of this.
Yeah. We definitely need more. And I also like to forward. Let's talk about the mothership. I mean, when the containers goes to attack the mothership with all the little mini ships are attacking, kind of gives a little Star Wars references.
Oh yes, definitely Star Wars, especially when Kazama, played by what's his name? Sorry, let me bring it back up here.
I don't remember, but
he goes through in the inside to take down. We think he's going to take down the main reactor, like in Return of the Jedi, but it's really the shields.
Yeah, but he sacrificed himself for taking down the shield, and
yeah, Kane Kazugi. Sorry, that's his name.
Yeah, and yeah, this scene always makes me think of Star Wars, and
how could it not?
Yeah, and also this is also Mothra's last Godzilla film she's in for the Toho Godzilla, and they actually brought back the Showa, the twin fairies.
Yeah, and actually want to stop you right there, because one of the twin fairies is actually played by Masami Nakasawa, who was just recently in Shin Ultraman as Hiroko Asami, one of the main women characters in that film, and she was also in Shin Kamen Rider just recently as Sasori Augament. I need to be cut it off. I haven't seen Shin Kamen Rider yet. I've heard varying things, but I have seen the Shin Ultraman. Have you seen Shin Ultraman with her in it?
Actually, no, I never seen Shin Ultraman, but maybe I'll give it a try.
But she does come back in that film as a really big role. And then it was told to me, oh yeah, that's one of the Shobijin from Final Wars and Tokyo SOS. I'm like, oh really? And then I looked at her, I'm like, oh yeah, it is her.
Yeah, and they have Mothra, like fight Gigan. I mean, because they explain on Infant Island that Mothra fight Gigan 1,000 years ago, and
I did
and
like that theme because they're
yeah,
using the Battle for Earth, but in place of Batra, they're putting Gigan in Batra's place.
yep,
But Gigan doesn't turn good.
yeah, and also, yeah, also there are only two monsters left that Godzilla fight with. One is my favorite monster, Ebra, and the Smog monster.
Oh man, don't get me started on this because this is where I have the biggest problem with Godzilla Final Wars. But I'll let you start here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they brought back Hedorah and Ebra. I mean, I always like the part when Ebra's claw gets snug into Hedorah's head.
I did like that. One problem though,
What?
this fight needed to be 7 to 8 minutes longer.
Yeah, instead they just use Godzilla's atomic breath on them into a building, and
Yeah.
they,
Uh,
but they, I think there were some deleted scenes of Hedorah, like just use
Yeah.
his like smoky smog breath on when the buildings explode.
There is some B-roll in the ending credits that they did film, but I did read in an interview with Shinichi Wakasa. I believe it was with Keith Aiken on the Henshin thing. They asked, is because he was kind of ranking the monsters as A monsters, B monsters, and even C monsters. And unfortunately, Hedra to him ended up as a sea monster because he just did not have the time or the resources to do a lot with him with what he was given. He wanted to, but he had to focus his efforts on Godzilla and the other bigger monsters. I think Ebra might have been a B monster to him. He didn't say, but I'm just guessing. But he did say Hedra is unfortunately the sea monster.
Yeah. Yeah, and so since we're almost at that time, I mean, I want to talk about Monster X.
Oh yes, this was definitely a newer creation. Which when I
Yeah,
saw him on Tokyo Monsters, the concept, I was like, I like the upper body. I'm not a fan of the lower body.
yeah,
It has a very H.R. Geiger alien look about it.
right. And because when I heard of Monster X, I wonder if they took that name off of the Gamera versus Jiger, but that was actually the US title.
Your guess is as good as mine, possibly.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed on the one of the old DVD covers of it that says Gamera versus Monster X, which is the US title for Jiger.
Yes.
Yeah, I wonder if they just took that name and they just put in this new monster, but I was wrong.
No, Monster X, though, I realize why they did the design with the feet the way they did because they really wanted this fight between Godzilla and Monster X to be like a kung fu fight of kaiju,
Yeah.
and even mixed with a little pro wrestling.
Yeah, and they have Gigan to help him and they defeat Godzilla, but Mothra comes in and just fights Gigan. And which my favorite part is like Gigan uses like his little buzzsaws and then like but he missed and he uses lasers and defeat Mothra and then thought Gigan was was victory but the chainsaw saw back at him and cut off his head and then Flaming Mothra just goes and blasts him.
I have a theory Mothra technically survived that fight because I'll have to. That's just my fan theory. I know she died, but in that B roll where she's flying back to Infant Island, I like to think that there was a flame that went through Gigan, and I thought that was technically Mothra flying through him, and her fight was over, so she left. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Then we get Kaiser Ghidorah right after that.
Yeah. Before that, I mean, the fights of Monster X and Godzilla. I mean, it's just, but they only showed the mutants and Exilian fights like longer.
Yeah, they were really focusing. You could tell Ryuhei Kitamura was really putting a lot of his versus style with the human fights, and he was really trying to focus on that, but also intersplice the monster scenes. But there is a hint of what happened in Terror Mechagodzilla when Godzilla's fighting Mechagodzilla, and then it's interweaving footage with what's his name? His name escapes me, but he's been to G-Fest, where he's fighting with the black hole alien, and it keeps switching back and forth between them. So I definitely saw that reference in there.
Yeah, and let's talk about Kaiser Ghidorah. I remember when I first saw it when Monster X goes his transformation and he has wings, and I thought, what? And I was surprised that I thought it was like King Ghidorah,
Yes.
Godzilla's main enemy.
Yes, and there was a lot of guesstimation on what all was going to happen at the end. I remember on Tokyo Monsters, there was a rumor going around that Godzilla was going to die, and not at the hands of Ghidorah, but what the rumor was saying was that when Godzilla fights Monster X, it's going to turn into the Fire Dragon, the proposed thing from Destroy All Monsters. And the Fire Dragon was apparently going to kill Godzilla. But then the Gotengo was going to deliver the final blow to the Fire Dragon, and that's how it ended. And we were all kind of like, no, that can't be.
Yeah.
I don't know how much water that rumor held or what was going on there, but I just know that would not have been a good ending.
Yeah, and also I did notice that Kaiser Ghidorah did have 4 legs.
Yeah, it looks very much like Desghidorah from the
Yeah, kind of like a Desghidorah.
I don't know if it was created from a similar mold or not, but I just got a lot of vibes from Desghidorah from that design.
Yeah, definitely Desghidorah design.
Now, I do want to point out something. We were talking about earlier about the Godzilla design. Now, for all the fight scenes that Godzilla did, they had to restructure the Godzilla suit different than how they did before. And it goes back to those sites that I mentioned earlier with the encyclopedia and the books that were talking about how they made Godzilla. They had to take the armpit sections like right here and make them more double jointed with urethane. And the whole lower body, they had to basically piece together urethane from scratch, different than how they've done the other suits, which was all pretty much latex. And the arms right here were like really skin tight for Kitagawa to do his punching thing. The armpit sections here that were double jointed allowed him to be punching and reach out more than the SOS suit and compared to other suits in the past. It was a lot more Showa, and with good reason for those fight scenes, because you also have to understand Kitagawa is a very accomplished martial artist. And another thing that he mentioned in interviews or at panels, he wore Bruce Lee's yellow tracksuit that he wore in Game of Death underneath the Godzilla suit as an homage to Bruce Lee.
Wow.
Yes.
It's very interesting. And yeah, that was really interesting, Billy. I mean, I gotta say that they, like you said earlier, they almost tried to kill off Godzilla in this one, but because of that scene that they Kaiser Ghidorah sucking the energy off of Godzilla, but the but the mutant humans decided to help him, and the Cortango, they just decided to give him some energy, and it did, and they actually brought back the red atomic break what they used in the 2 Heisei Godzilla films.
Yes, I was glad they brought that back. And they kind of brought back his nuclear pulse in a kind of way when he's getting his energy pumped back up from the Gotengo.
Yeah.
And then like he kind of uses a pulse-like thing to get Kaiser off of him.
Right.
So I did appreciate the little Heisei references there. You know what? While we still have some time, I hope you don't mind. I wanted to talk about my G-Fest premiere experience.
Okay, but before we get to that, I would like to talk about how this film came up premiered in theaters. I mean,
Yes.
it does. It gives like a little premiere, not at the in Japan Toho's theater for its marathon, but it did its premiere in the United States at the Chinese theater,
Yes.
which they have Godzilla's Walk of Fame is right
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
right close to the Chinese theater, which I have been to back in 2016. Here's a photo of
Oh, nice.
Yep, there's a photo of me with the Walk of Fame.
Dude,
Yep.
I'm kind of jelly there. I wish I could see that in person.
That's me. And if you look closely, it has my old channel name before I changed it to Autistic Lizard.
Nice.
People used to call me Lizard Boy, but now I changed my channel name to Autistic Lizard.
No, go with what you want there, man. But yeah, it was released in December 4th of 2004 at the world premiere there. Wait, no, it was released in Japan December 4th, 2004, but the world premiere was technically November 29th, 2004 at the Chinese theater in Los Angeles, California. Now, we also got to mention this film was one of the biggest budgets of any at 1.9 to it was between 1.9 to 2 billion yen, and unfortunately it made only 1.26 billion yen back.
Yeah, it is the expensive Godzilla film they ever made.
Yeah, and you know what beat it at the box office? It opened at number 3 opening weekend with like a 1,874,000 gross, but it was overshadowed by hits like Hayao Miyazaki's Howl's Moving Castle and Disney's The Incredibles when it was released in Japan there.
Yeah, it was, and
yeah,
and I want to tell you about my experience when I went to Los Angeles back in 2016. I mean, I remember when I went to Los Angeles and Hollywood, as I was walking around looking at the Walk of Fames, and it was what an experience I'll never forget. It feels like I'm in the movies, like I'm actually in Hollywood. But when I got to the Chinese theater, I thought this area looks familiar. But when my mom got my attention, she spotted the Walk of Fame of Godzilla, and I was amazed. I kind of almost, almost gave that Walk of Fame a hug there, like I was laying the floor. Like,
nice.
Yeah, one experience I'll never forget.
Hey, you got to hold on to experiences like those because they only happen once in a lifetime.
And I did stand by the entrance where they have the Godzilla suit has entered after he show himself before when he blows his smoke breath, and when they have this Walk of Fame announced and with the crowds, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So I know we only got like maybe 10 minutes left, so I'll try and make the premiere that I experienced very quick here. But G-Fest 2005 was my very first G-Fest I ever attended and first discovered G-Fest at. And man, I felt like an excited kid in a toy store again. But this was, man, I was in my 20s at this time. I feel so old talking about this, but Godzilla Final Wars, the Chicago premiere, happened at that G-Fest of 2005, and I go there. And you've been to many G-Fests premieres at the Pickwick, and so have I, but not one of them I've ever been to was more packed than that Godzilla Final Wars premiere. Almost every seat in that theater was accounted for. It may not have sold out, but it was damn close. And the way the audience reacted to everything was just amazing. It was an experience in itself. And one of the funniest moments I remember is when Minya's first appearance came up. There was like utter silence for a second. You could hear a pin drop. And I was thinking to myself, oh man, something's going to happen here. And then when the grandpa goes to try and shoot Minya, but then the kid gets in the way, I heard somebody scream in the audience, "No, shoot him!" Everybody just busted out laughing for several minutes. It took them a while to calm down after that. They even reacted big when Kazama's like, "Hey, watch it, X-Man," and everybody laughed.
Oh my god!
Marvel's X-Men.
I bet. Yeah, I just hope it'll never happen in the new upcoming Godzilla film -1.
Yeah, no, they're going a different route with that, and I hope it's the route they're going with. But let me just say one last thing about the end. When the last shot of Godzilla walking into the sunset in that big pool, which unfortunately they tore that big pool down. It was the end of an era when they tore that pool down after that scene was completed. That was the end of that pool after they shot that scene. But anyway,
Yep.
The whole audience got up and applauded. They were applauding so damn loud. The only time the applause matched that at G-Fest was the Gojira 54 screening that Akira Takarada was in attendance for. But man, they went nuts. And they waited until all the credits were done, and they applauded again. I felt I had seen it all. I was so happy. I went home, and I was so excited to go to G-Fest the next morning to talk about how awesome Godzilla Final Wars was with all the people that I met so far. And the first thing I heard from everybody was, "That film was awful. I can't believe how bad that film was. I can't believe this and that." And I'm looking at all of them like, weren't all of you just applauding it last night? That makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh man.
I will never understand that. Whenever anybody trashes Final Wars in my presence, I always have to tell this story. And there's not one person who can say that I'm lying, because those who are there will remember they applauded at the end like they loved it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I've been hearing some rumors or fans saying that Godzilla Final Wars wasn't the best of the Millennium era films. I mean, I still like Final Wars. It's like this film is over a 2-hour Godzilla film.
Yes, it's the longest Toho Godzilla film there is, clocking in at 125 minutes. The only two Godzilla films that are longer than it are the American ones, 98 at 140 minutes, and Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019 at 132 minutes.
So Godzilla Final Wars is the longest.
Yep. I can't remember how long Shin Godzilla is, but I don't think it was longer than Final Wars.
Yeah, and that was actually Shin Godzilla was actually my first Toho Godzilla film I ever watched in theaters when it was released in US theaters.
Mine was Godzilla 2000 when it did actually have a US release. Now, hold that thought one second. I did want to say something that Godzilla Final Wars, Sony actually pitched the idea to have a theatrical run of Godzilla Final Wars in the States. And in David Collette's book, Critical History of Filmography of Toho's Godzilla series, on page 253, he does say that the staff at Sony that had been responsible for Godzilla 2000 were eager to take Godzilla Final Wars around on a full theatrical run. However, an impasse over Toho's monetary demands kept the film on DVD with isolated repertory screenings.
Wow.
Missed opportunity.
So they were going to make a US cut version of this film, but
And I guarantee if it had a small US run with Godzilla Final Wars in the shows, I guarantee you the film would not have flopped.
Yeah. But and I know you bring up about Godzilla 2000, and speaking of, they just Phantom Events just announced they were gonna release this film in US theaters for a limited time only on November 1st.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's true they're gonna have this film in the US cut version, or I did look at the trailer. It looks like they're just gonna release it in the original Japanese cut.
I'm still debating if I'll see it. I probably will, since I saw it. I might see it in the same theater that I saw it, just for nostalgia purposes. If it's the Japanese cut, I'll still watch it, but I love the US cut better.
Yeah. Since
And
like
oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I kind of had Svengoolie playing in the background here, and guess what he's playing next Saturday?
what?
Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Anyway, sorry. Continue with what you were saying.
And I was gonna say that since I know my previous Godzilla film podcast episodes that they never reached over 2 hours, but since we only have 5 minutes, I mean, I want to make this episode like almost a 2-hour run. I want this to be in 2 hours. I mean, I just want to reach that, and since we only have 5 minutes left, actually 4 minutes now. So before I I want to give a few say about this film. I mean, after they give Godzilla Walk to Fame, I mean, the producer of it, who owns the Toho rights, I mean, I don't remember his name, but he gave a big speech that
Tomiyama.
Yeah, that he gave a big speech that Godzilla will go along retirement, and this is the final one. But so far in the future, he'll be given a new generations for new filmmakers in the future, which it did. I mean, because of the MonsterVerse.
Well, it goes along with I can't remember which G-Fan historian it was in one of the audio commentaries for Classic Media. In Terra Mechagodzilla, I think it was Keith Aiken or Bob Johnson, but they said if cinema history has proven one thing, Godzilla will always return.
Yeah. And before this film was made, they took the director and the producers they're trying to figure out which monsters they want to add into this film, but they had this idea, so they brought a few boxes full of Godzilla Bandai toys, they just put them out the table and it's just laid them out and decided which one they want to pick.
Yeah.
And they took them hours. And I imagine if this took them like hours, they would actually pick them out and start playing with them. Like,
I would have loved to have seen a video of them debating with those figures. That would have
and all that. I mean, and that was actually impressive that they did. They just laid out the toys and say, okay, let's just use this monster and that monster, and
not that monster.
Yeah. And but the one monster they could have just added it was the Destroyer.
That would have been cool. We kind of had a shortage of Heisei monsters there.
Yeah, not so much Heisei monsters.
Well, the original Heisei monsters like Biollante, Destroyer, Space Godzilla, whatever.
Yeah, but they have Rodan in it, and
yeah,
from
those don't count.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
anyway,
yeah. So, is that something you want to say?
Well, I just want to say, since we're running out of time here, thank you so very much for having me be a part of the Godzilla Final Wars discussion here. And I'm so honored that you were able to close the original Toho series. I don't know if you're going to get to Shin Godzilla later, but I'm glad that you asked me to be a part of it to close off what we described as the original run.
Yeah, and you're welcome, Billy. And Yeah, so he said after this episode, I might take a break from Godzilla podcast episodes for now and start focusing on other kaiju episodes I haven't done yet. Maybe Kong or Gamera. And yeah, I gotta do those monsters since we only have like 20 seconds, and I just want to make this overrun 2 hours and all that. So, like I said, I mean, the next episode will be Godzilla from 2014, the MonsterVerse. And like I said in Japanese, sayonara, everybody.
Sayonara.
And so, yeah, I mean, whew, I could use a long vacation. And yeah, and
Are we off? Are we off the air?
yep. And okay, let me. So that was my final Godzilla film podcast episode, everybody. So sayonara.
Sayonara. Sorry. Oh man, that was embarrassing. Are we off